I'm gonna tell you what realistic job you should get based on your pipe dream career. So what do I mean by pipe dream versus realistic career? Basically, it's like if you wanted to be a pop star, but not everyone is a pop, like most people are not pop stars, like what is the realistic thing that you could do as like one of the many people that want to be a pop star, where like you can still sing, you can still use the same skill set. That's what this video is about. So this video is gonna be split into like the different types of common pipe dream careers that people have. So running through the categories really quickly.
There are 11 different categories.
Delusional romantic artists, anything in tech or like something perpetually online, people who say they want to travel for a living, people that want to work within aesthetics, people who want to live on stage, people who want to make crafts for a living, people who want to save something, physically motivated dream careers, prestige professions, academic overthinker with something to prove, people that have morbid curiosity and you want to make it employable morbid curiosity. So now that you broadly know what the categories are going to be, we're going to take each of these turn by turn. I'm going to tell you some specific pipe dream jobs within each category, and then I'm going to give you like a realistic job that you could actually do, which is adjacent to your pipe dream job and lets you use the same skill set. So starting with the first category of pipe dream job, which is delusional romantic artist. These are jobs basically where like you're creative, you think you have a creative soul, you think you have a story to tell, you have half-finished ideas, you want to create something. A common pipe dream job in this category is being a film director. So some realistic jobs that you get if you want to be a film director. Most people are not film directors. Some realistic jobs like being a film director include being a video editor. This job involves editing videos being corporate sizzle reels or like wedding highlight videos, and working on your own film script in your downtime. Another job you can get is being an assistant director on like an indie set. This is also like a step below being a film director. You gotta like work your way up, right? So being an assistant director, sometimes you still call action on set, but mostly it's about like wrangling extras and chasing lost props. You could also be a director for TV commercials, which is like still shouting on set, but it's like for yogurt ads instead of art house dramas. Another job you can get is being a production assistant. So again, you get to be on set, but it's more about making coffees and rolling cables, but you get to be in the environment. Another realistic job you can get is being a content producer for brands. So again, this is like filming product demos for actual, like, I don't know, hairspray for Instagram. Another dream career path is being a novelist or a writer. So some realistic career paths if your dream job is to be like a writer or like a novelist. So the first job you can get is being a copywriter. A copywriter essentially writes slogans for in oat milk ads instead of your literary masterpiece. You can also be a content writer. This job involves doing like writing SEO listicles about skincare routines. You could also be a technical writer. Technical writers basically write manuals for industrial equipment. You can also be an editorial assistant. The job of an editorial assistant is essentially you read other people's novel drafts while yours stays untouched in your own drafts. You could be a freelance ghostwriter. This job might involve writing a memoir for an influencer while they take credit for all of your hard work. You could also be a content writer, which is crafting brand stories. So crafting a brand story is like top 10 indoor plants for your zodiac sign, you know, brand story. And finally, another job you can get if you dream of being a writer is you can be a proofreader. A proofreader essentially fixes commas in other people's novels. Okay, so another common pipe dream job is being a fine artist. So if you want to be a fine artist, some realistic jobs you can get. So the first job you can get is being an art handler. So in this job, you're still moving art, but it's basically bubble wrapping someone else's work and installing it with a level. You could be a gallery assistant. Gallery assistants are still in the art world, but it's more about pouring cheap wine at openings and updating the email list. You could also be a freelance illustrator. In this job, you're still making art, but it's most likely going to be some like commissioned pet portraits. Another job you can get is being an art teacher. As an art teacher, a lot of your time is going to be spent refilling acrylic paint while saying, just try your best to a bunch of 13-year-olds like 43 times an hour. You could be a mural painter's assistant. So this job still involves painting, and it still involves like painting big things, but it's more about like priming walls and cleaning brushes at 2 a.m. And finally, you can be a flash tattoo artist. So being a flash tattoo artist involves still designing visuals, designing art, but it's going to be like a lot more butterflies and roses than you expect. Moving on to the next pipe dream job, another common pipe dream career is being a photographer. So if you want to be a professional photographer, here are some realistic jobs that you can get. A lot of these are still going to be in photography, but it's probably like not the photography that you hope to be doing. So the first one is being an event photographer. Again, this is still photography, but it involves a lot of like chasing golden hour at a wedding with a stressed bride. You could be a product photographer. This job involves taking pictures of vitamin bottles on marble backdrops. You could also be a freelance portrait photographer. So by portraits here, I mean headshots in a a co-working space lobby or like family holiday cards in a park pavilion. Adjacent to that, you can be a corporate photographer. So again, it's like taking individual and or employee group photos against a white backdrop. You can also be an assistant to a senior photographer, maybe in a form of photography that you're more into. This job involves holding reflectors and editing skin blemishes for hours on end. And finally, you can be a real estate photographer, which is like shooting condos with staged fake fruit inside. So another common pipe dream job is being a musician, specifically being like a well-known musician that does tours and you go on tour, you do concerts. So a more realistic version of being a musician is essentially playing music, but maybe not at as large of a venue as you hope to be at. So the first type of realistic musician job you can get is being a session guitarist. This involves playing other people's songs in the studio. You can be a wedding band musician. Here, there's still a live audience, but it's gonna be a lot of covers of Mr. Brightside and like Sweet Caroline at basically every wedding reception. Adjacent to that, you could be a local venue performer. This involves performing at open mic nights on Tuesday with a half-drunk crowd. Another job you can get is being a local venue sound tech. This job involves mixing live sets for like 3 ska bands in a row. And finally, you could also be a private music teacher. This job is basically teaching Wonderwall and the guitar to 12-year-olds. So this video is about realistic careers, right? And one kind of annoying but true thing that happens regardless of if you're a novelist, if you're a pop star, if you're a copywriter, you still have to figure out what to do with your money, which is why I've been personally working through this class on Skillshare called Master Your Money, Personal Finance, Investing, and Productivity for Beginners. And like, I'll be honest, right? That's not fun. Like, it's kind of boring, right? Like, it's not a sexy course to take. Like, there's no mood board, but it's honestly been one of the most useful things that I've taken on Skillshare. Because the truth is, right? And also the crux of this video, which is a lot of people pick dream jobs based on the aesthetic or the vibe of the job. But if you're navigating a real life career, especially a creative one, that means budgeting, especially if you're a freelancer for dry spells, planning around weird income spikes, and trying not to crash out at every tax season. This class is useful because it's teaching me how to make an actual plan around my finances and how to just not feel things through month by month. I've been personally going through the goal setting checklist, and it's genuinely been really helpful in helping me map out how I want YouTube to grow as a sustainable career. Especially because there's like no university class on like how to have a niche internet job without losing your mind, right? Skillshare offers classes in a variety of categories, such as the courses you see on screen right now, and they span from art and illustration,
We've covered
photography,
the...
and creativity. You can learn directly
Hello,
from
welcome to the
real,
class.
super talented,
Let's just dive into it, and let's start off with the...
You've definitely seen other creators talk about Skillshare, and Skillshare is known for being great for creativity, right? I'm here to tell you that it's also great for structure behind creativity. Like, yeah, you should take this painting class, you should take this writing class, but also you should take one that stops you from crying every time you look at your bank account. If you want to give it a try, then the first 500 people to use my link in the description will get 20% off their first year of Skillshare. So you should get started today. You also get a 7-day free trial and a 30-day money-back guarantee. So go learn something and maybe write down your grocery spending for once. Moving on to the next pipe dream job, another common one is being a creative or art director. So if this is your dream job, some realistic jobs you can get are being a graphic designer. This job involves a lot of fixing hex codes under multiple client revisions. You can be an art director at an ad agency, so like a corporate version of your dream job. So like this might be overseeing the visuals for a toothpaste campaign. You could also be a brand designer, which involves building mood boards for tech startups that no one's heard of. And finally, you can be a social media visual strategist. This is basically a fancy way of saying you make Canva graphics and you look at fonts a lot. You like fonts. Another common pipe dream job is being an architect that makes specifically big, beautiful buildings, like being a star architect. If this is your dream job, some realistic career prospects are being an architectural draftsperson. So this is someone that basically draws and details suburban housing plans. You could also be a junior project architect. So again, it's your dream job, but like on a smaller scale. So like you might be looking at engineering window trims as opposed to like skyscraper curves. You know what I mean? You could also be a buildings plan reviewer at city office. This job involves stamping approved on a lot of blueprints. You could be a CAD technician. A CAD technician is basically someone that like looks at line weights all but like for like 12 hours a day, and you correct wall alignments for like, I don't know, like the 17th time this week. That's what a CAD technician does. Moving on to the next pipe dream job. Another common dream is to own your own gallery or like be a museum curator. So if this is your dream job, some realistic jobs you can get are being a collections registrar, which involves logging artifacts in a freezing basement. You could be a museum educator. This involves giving third graders tours about ancient pottery. You can also be a gallery coordinator, which is a lot more moving crates and like handling loan agreements, but at least you're still in the space. You could be a gallery assistant. This involves a lot of serving free wine at openings and like updating mailing lists. And finally, you can be an arts fair booth assistant. This involves standing by the same painting for 12 hours straight talking about it. The final pipe dream in this category is being a children's author. So like if this is your dream job, some realistic jobs you can get are being a librarian. This involves telling people to be quiet in the reading nook. You know what a librarian does. You could be a bookseller at a kid's store. You could also be a storytime leader. That's basically a fancy way of saying you read to preschoolers at 10 a.m. And finally, you can be a freelance editor for picture books. So this involves fixing rhyming schemes in children's book manuscripts. Okay, so now we're gonna move into the second soft category of like dream pipe jobs, okay? This category is basically tech-oriented with big ideas and even bigger dreams. You tell people that you wanna work on tech that makes people feel something and makes an impact, but you and I both know this is just code word for I'm on my computer for 20 hours a day and I wanna make money from it. It's more than likely this, but that doesn't sound as good, right? So like we're not gonna say that. So the first common pipe dream role in this category is being a video game designer. So if you wanna be a video game designer, some realistic jobs you can get are being a QA tester. This is basically someone that reports bugs in video games that no one fixes. Another job you can get is being a levels designer. This job involves placing crates and calling it narrative design. You can also be a community manager. So community managers essentially explain patch notes in video games that no one ever reads. And finally, you can be a game UI designer. So this is someone that makes buttons that players on Twitter will call ugly. Okay, the next kind of vague dream career is like someone that wants to invent something in tech, right? Like you want to make big money from inventing something in tech. So like a realistic job that you can get if this is your dream is being a back-end developer. This is someone that's on Slack at 3 a.m. debugging things. You can also be a data scientist, which is a fancy phrase for cleaning data sets for 3 months straight. Another job you get is being a machine learning engineer. This involves tuning a model that no one understands and no one cares about. And finally, you can be an AI product manager. So this involves explaining what AI is to your 57-year-old manager in a meeting for the 5th time this week. And finally, this job is not even in tech, but it's like internet coded. It's like basically you want to be an esports professional or you want to get paid for playing video games. So the realistic jobs for this category are very similar to video game designer. You can be a QA game tester. So again, bug reporting. You could be a community moderator. So you ban 14-year-olds who are saying bad words in Discord. The final job you can get if you want to be a professional esports player is being a gaming content creator, which obviously you are gonna do. It just depends on if you're making money from it. You're gonna do this on top of your normal job, which actually pays the bills until your following takes off. This involves streaming for your 20 loyal viewers and a random bot account. So the next category of pipe dream jobs is people who want to travel for a living. And when I mean travel for a living, right? Let's be honest, when people say they want to travel for a living, they don't mean like become a flight attendant or like join Doctors Without Borders. They basically mean I want to be in Bali eating fruit out of a coconut and somehow get paid for doing that. Basically, it's a job where it's not about the work, it's about being somewhere else constantly, with the implication that there's a camera involved usually and like someone else is paying. Basically, some version of like a travel vlogger. Depending on the type of person you are, the amount of physical activity could vary, so it could range from like a person eating 5 different types of cheese pasta all day in Italy to free soloing in North. Basically, this is a vague category for a vague job aspiration. So I'm going to talk about some generalized get paid to travel vacation aspirations. So some realistic careers you can get if this is your pipe dream job aspiration are being a tour guide. This involves herding tourists through a crowded piazza with a flag. You can also be a content creator for a tourism board. This involves writing Instagram captions like hidden gem alert for paid campaigns. You could also be a hotel social media manager, which means you post pictures of the hotel pool that you didn't swim in. By the way, I've made a flowchart which is a hard copy of all of the dream jobs and realistic jobs listed in this video. If you'd like a copy of just all the information, then you can find it up here or you can find it in my Ko-fi page link in the description. Another job you can get is being a travel vlogger's assistant. This means you basically carry all of the gear up of the mountain, but at least you're actually there. You could be a destination content assistant, which means editing drone footage that someone else filmed. Another one you can be is being a food tour guide. This basically means walking like 6 miles a day, pointing at different types of food and like telling the tourists, trust me, this one's worth it. Okay, now I'm going to talk about some adjacent jobs, which are also like paid to travel jobs. But these are for people that like to like move around a lot, or they like adventure, they like adrenaline. So while the last section of jobs is for people that want to like walk around and eat basically for a living, you want to like have good food on vacation for a living, this is like for people that like hiking around in nature and for a living. The first thing you can do is being an adventure tour guide. This involves leading zipline tours for nervous honeymooners. Another job is being a trail maintenance worker. So trail maintenance workers, basically, you're still in the mountains, but like with a lot more clearing branches with a chainsaw instead of posing on the peak of the mountain. You could also be a climbing gym staffer. You basically work at the climbing gym and you like reset the routes indoors, you untangle harnesses, and you mop a lot of chalk off the floor. And the final realistic career you can get if this is your pipe dream job is to be a hiking guide. Here you're still leading adventures, but there's a lot more rerouting because someone forgot their water. Moving on to the next category of common pipe dream job. This category is what I call you want to work on aesthetics for a living. So basically, you like pretty things, you like fashion, you like style, aesthetics, you know, you like the visuals, you know, you want to do that for a living. So one of the most common pipe dream careers is to be an influencer. So if your dream job is to be an influencer, here are some realistic job prospects you can get into. So the first one is being a social media coordinator. This involves posting for like a brand's Instagram. It might be like product shots, it might be shots of other influencers. If you have a small following but you're not like a full-blown influencer, you might also be like a brand ambassador. A brand ambassador is basically you pose with PR boxes that you didn't order and for like products that you probably won't use. You can also be a content creator's assistant. This involves taking 100 identical photos of someone standing in front of a mural. And finally, you can be a community manager. This is someone that like runs the community page of like an influencer. So like you might respond to fans and be like, oh, thank you, or like you might delete weird comments. Another common pipe dream job that people have is being a runway model. So if your dream job is to be a runway model, some realistic jobs that you can get are being a fit model. So a fit model is basically like a model, but you're not on the runway. It's someone that like tries clothing samples on to like see how the garment fits, right? So it's like for the designers in their design process. There's a lot more fluorescent lighting and there's a lot more pinned sample garments, but you're still modeling. You can also be a runway dresser. This involves still being near fashion shows and there's still a lot of backstage chaos, except there's probably no photos of you. I'm really sorry. You can also be an e-commerce model. So this is someone that like poses for clothing, like online clothing stores. You're probably gonna be wearing like 45 slightly different t-shirts in one afternoon. That's gonna be the job. And finally, you can be a showroom model. So a showroom model is someone that like wears the clothes for rich shoppers if they're like too lazy to put the clothes on themselves. So like people would be like circling you silently, looking at you, like looking at the fit of the clothes. Okay, another common pipe dream aspiration in this category is being a fashion designer or a stylist. So if your dream job is being a fashion designer / stylist, some realistic careers you can get into include being an apparel product developer. This means you'll spend a lot of your time checking if pant seams are like 2 millimeters off. You can also be a fashion buyer assistant. This involves ordering 300 pairs of the exact same beige pants for next season. You could be a pattern maker. This involves translating someone else's vision onto like a technical grid. You could also be a costume assistant for theater or TV, which might include gluing rhinestones onto like 40 identical jackets. You could also be a technical designer. This involves fixing the specs on someone else's sketch. You could also be a stylist assistant. So here you're still dressing talent, but now it's a lot more steaming clothes backstage and chasing down a missing belt. You could be a visual merchandiser. Here you're still curating outfits, but now it's on mannequins in a department store window at 2 a.m. You could also be a personal shopper at like a luxury department store. So here you're still choosing outfits for people, but now your clients are like the wife of a finance man who wants something timeless in her closet. And finally, you could be an e-commerce product stylist. Here again, you're still putting looks together, but it's like 47 beige blouses on a mannequin for like a website refresh. Okay, moving on to the next common category of pipe dream career. This one is called people who want to live on stage. So for this type of person, you love being the center of attention. You like being on stage. You like having people watch you, having people listen to you. The stage is your home. You don't just want attention. You want applause, ideally after a monologue. So the first type of common dream role in this category is being a singer. So like by singer, I assume you want to be like a pop star, like a rock star, like a world-renowned singer that's like well-known internationally. So some realistic job prospects, if that's your dream, is probably still singing in some aspect, but again, probably with less audience. So the first one is being a vocal coach. This involves teaching nervous kids to breathe from their diaphragm a lot of the time. You could be a choir director, which involves leading church rehearsals and corralling sopranos. You could also be a wedding singer. This involves covering Shiloh for the 3rd time this week at someone else's wedding reception. And finally, you can be a session vocalist. This is someone that does backing vocals that no one credits on songs. Okay, a next common category of pipe dream career is being an actor. So if you want to be like a famous actor in Hollywood, some realistic job prospects you can get into involve being an acting teacher. So that involves a lot of leading theater warm-ups at a rec center. You could be a voiceover artist for ads. This job involves saying like, your call is important to us, in a soothing tone over gynecology office answering machines. You could also be a standardized patient. So a standardized patient is basically you pretending to be like a sick person or like having an illness for med school students. So, like, you might be pretending you have appendicitis to a bunch of 20-year-olds who are doing their exams. You could also be a community theater director, which involves volunteering your weekends for like a local production. You could be a children's theater performer. This is a lot of leading song and dance shows at schools. You could be a regional theater actor. So this is still acting on stage the way you want, but it might be like starring in a Sondheim show for like 40 audience members. And finally, you can be a commercial actor. So commercial actors are like regular actors, but for commercials. So you might be pretending to enjoy yogurt on camera. Okay, moving on to the next common category of pipe dream role. This is like every type of person who wants to be like a motivational speaker, anyone that wants to be a thought leader or like a TED Talk speaker. So if this is your dream role, some realistic job prospects you can get are being a workshop facilitator. This involves still sharing your ideas, still being a thought leader, but most likely it's going to be like in a conference room with a broken projector. You could be a corporate trainer. This involves teaching effective communication skills at an offsite. You could be a keynote prep consultant, which is a fancy way of saying you edit other people's decks for a living. And the final job you can get is being a public speaking coach. This involves helping executives fake charisma and a likable personality. The final common pipe dream people have is being a famous DJ. So if your dream job is being like on the main stage at Coachella, everyone's like partying, you know, like thousands of people screaming. Some realistic career aspirations involve still DJing to some extent, but again, less audience. So the first one is being an event DJ. This involves playing like the cha-cha slide at a middle school dance. You could be a wedding DJ. This involves pointedly ignoring someone's aunt while they request ABBA for the 5th time that night. You can also be a bar DJ. This job involves spinning a lot of indie tracks that no one listens to. And finally, you can be a sound tech for events. So you're still near the decks here, but like it's more cable wrangling. Okay, moving on to the next common category of pipe dream job. This is what I call people who want to craft with their hands. So this is for people whose dream job is to like make things with love, right? For a living. So like your dreams involve tools, textures, or feeding people until they cry. So the first common dream job here is being a chef or like a restaurant owner. So if your dream job is being a chef or owning your own restaurant, some realistic jobs you can get include being a line cook. This involves making 42 identical avocado toast during brunch rush. You could be a prep cook. This involves chopping onions for 4 hours straight. You could be part of the catering staff, which is assembling tiny hors d'oeuvres behind the scenes. Or you can be a recipe developer for like a meal kit company. So here you get to actually design the food, you get to craft a little bit, but it's probably going to be like quinoa bowls that like ship well. Okay, the next common pipe dream career is to be a woodworker. So if your dream job is to be a woodworker, some realistic jobs you can get involve being a carpenter's apprentice. So this is like someone that sands someone else's IKEA hack. You can also be a prefab assembly tech. This involves bolting together tiny homes in a warehouse. You could be a DIY workshop instructor. This involves teaching other people to build your own shelving. You could be a handyman's assistant, which is like fixing someone else's crooked cabinets for a living. You could also be a furniture restorer. So like this is someone that strips a lot of old varnish in a basement somewhere. And finally, you can be a CNC machine operator. So you basically program cuts for chair legs for a living. Okay, moving on to the next common category of pipe dream job. If you're in this category, you're probably a better person than me. This is the category I call people who want to save something. So if you're like someone with a big heart and you want to make the world less bad, right? Whether it's a dog, it's a forest, an entire ecosystem, you want your job to be dedicated to like bettering something, you know, like bettering a social cause that you feel strongly about. The first common pipe dream job here is being a wildlife conservationist or like someone that works with animals, right? You want to be like an animal shelter founder. So the first realistic job you can get from that is being a zoo educator. So a zoo educator is essentially someone that gives talks next to a sleeping iguana at like 9 a.m. in the morning. You could also be an animal care tech. Again, you get to work with animals here, but there's probably a lot more cleaning enclosures and like preparing their diets. You could be an environmental compliance officer. So this is someone that makes sure developers follow the right rules. You could run the social media page for like a wildlife center. So like a wildlife center social media manager. So you're the person that posts the "did you know" facts with emojis about several different animals a day. And finally, you can be a pet adoption counselor. This is someone that approves adoption applications for pets from people who change their mind. The next common pipe dream aspiration in this category is being a restoration architect or like an urban conservationist. So if your dream job is being an urban conservationist, a realistic job prospect you can get into is being a historic preservation consultant. This involves filling out grant paperwork for months on end. You could be a building conservation tech. This job involves a lot of scraping paint off of like 120-year-old ornamentation. You can also be a preservation planner. This involves writing a lot of reports that like 2 people will read. And finally, you can be an architectural historian. This involves documenting many facades with really bad photocopies. Okay, moving on to the next common category of pipe dream job. This is what I call people who are physically motivated, okay? So like if you love physical activity, you love to get moving, you want to be paid for like hiking or climbing or sprinting or swimming, or like at least like anyone that just doesn't want to be inside like the rest of us. So the first common pipe dream job is being a professional athlete or like a professional bodybuilder. I'm gonna list quite a few because I feel like a lot of people have this pipe dream job. So if this is your dream career, some realistic job prospects you can get into involve, you could also be an assistant coach. This job involves running drills and you're still chasing the game here, but now it's from the sidelines with a clipboard instead of cleats. Another job you can get is being a strength and conditioning coach. This involves counting reps for college athletes. You could be a youth league referee. This involves getting screamed at by parents for $30 a game. You could also be an athletic trainer, so again, you're still adjacent to the game, but it's a lot more wrapping ankles rather than scoring touchdowns. You could be a video analyst. This involves watching game tape and noting who missed coverage. You could also be a recruiting coordinator, so this job involves calling teenagers and trying to convince them to come visit you on campus. You could also be an equipment manager. This involves sorting jerseys and helmets after practice. You could be a personal trainer. This involves convincing middle managers to finish the reps. You could be a high school coach. This job involves teaching track to teens who hate running. You could also be a fitness class instructor. This involves leading boot camp at 8 a.m. in a strip mall studio. Okay, moving on, the next common pipe dream job is being a pilot. So if your dream job is you want to be a pilot, so some realistic jobs you can get include being a flight instructor. This involves looping the same airfield while explaining crosswinds to people. You could be a corporate jet co-pilot. So here you still get to fly, but it's like flying executives who complain about the snacks too much. You could also be a drone operator. So again, it's still piloting, but now it's for like real estate videos. And finally, you can be a simulator trainer. So this is teaching other pilots to fly while you never leave the ground. Okay, the next common pipe dream job aspiration is being a wellness influencer, so like someone that like does yoga or like Pilates with 2 million Instagram followers. So some realistic job aspirations you can get involve being a Pilates instructor. So again, it's still Pilates, but instead of 2 million Instagram followers, you're charging $35 per class. You could be a yoga instructor, same as the Pilates one, like same job, just minus the clout, and there's probably someone teaching Zumba in the next room. You could be a corporate wellness coordinator. This is someone that leads meditation sessions over Zoom. And for any of these, obviously, you're also going to be running your own fitness Instagram on the side, which currently means posting reels to your 300 followers until you blow up, obviously, until you get big, then that'll be your main thing. Okay, the next common job aspiration is for anyone that's like thrill seeking, you're an adrenaline junkie, you like extreme sports, so like an extreme sports athlete. If this is your thing, some realistic job prospects you can get into involve being an obstacle course assistant. So this is someone that resets mud pits between heats. You could be a CrossFit coach, which is basically like a regular coach, except there's like a lot more EDM, there's a lot more, it's more aggressive. You could be a rock climbing instructor. This involves checking harnesses, doing waiver forms, probably less adrenaline than you hope you would have. You could also be a trampoline gym coach. This involves supervising flips for kids' parties. You could also be an adventure park guide. This involves strapping people into zip lines for a living. And finally, you can be an aerial silks teacher. This involves telling people to point your toes 80 times a week. Okay, the final common pipe dream job in this category is being a professional race car driver or professional F1 driver. So if you dream of being a race car driver, some realistic job aspirations you can get include being a go-kart track operator. So you basically deal with middle school birthday parties. You could be a driving instructor. Your job involves teaching defensive driving in a parking lot for a living. You could also be an auto shop tech. So here you're rotating tires, not engines. And finally, you can be a pit crew assistant. So here you're still on the tracks, but it's more cleaning tools between the races. Okay, the next common pipe dream job category is what I call prestige professions. So this one is a little bit different from the other types of like categories. These are like careers which are not pipe dreams because very little people are them. They're like the careers that make your parents proud and your dates nervous. They come with like titles, fancy business cards, and like job security that makes you guilty for feeling depressed doing these jobs. So for these category of jobs, right, they're all technically achievable jobs. The pipe dream job aspect of it comes from the fact that it's not like statistically improbable that you'll get this job. It's more that like people chase the idea of the job rather than the reality of the job. So when you think of these jobs, right, you're thinking traditional, high paying, people are impressed when they hear what you do for a living. This is the type of job in this category. So like title, promotion, big name, old money, this type of job. So the first one is being a lawyer at a multinational corporate firm. Lots of people dream of this job. If this is your job aspiration, some realistic career aspirations, or like at least realistic career aspirations which are probably less deeply exhausting. One is being a paralegal. This involves highlighting PDFs at 11 p.m. and sending a lot of emails. I'm telling you from experience, a lot of emails. The next one is being a compliance associate. This involves reading a lot of privacy policies so that no one else has to. You could also be a legal operations analyst. This involves managing document databases that no one else understands. And finally, you can be a judicial clerk. This involves writing footnotes for someone else's decision. Okay, the next common job aspiration is being an investment banker. So if your dream job is to be an investment banker, so some realistic job prospects if you want to be an investment banker include being a financial analyst. So this is similar to being an investment banker, but instead is for mid-tier mergers instead of billion-dollar deals. You could also be a junior consultant at like a big four firm. This involves doing a lot of PowerPoint decks at like 2 a.m. You could be a corporate strategy associate. This job involves analyzing quarterly reports that no one reads. And finally, you can be an equity research assistant. This job involves forecasting numbers that get revised 48 hours later, and it's really annoying. Okay, the next pipe dream job in this category is being a doctor. So if you want to be a doctor, some realistic job prospects you could also get into include being a medical assistant. So in this job, you're still in scrubs, but like it's a lot more measuring vitals and like explaining the same thing 3 times a day. You could be a physician's assistant. So here you're still diagnosing, but it's under someone else's nameplate. You could be a medical scribe. So this is someone that follows doctors around, typing everything they say. And finally, you can be a clinical research coordinator. So here you're still contributing to science, but now it's a lot more spreadsheets, lab visit schedules, and like chasing patients who forgot their follow-ups. Okay, the next common pipe dream aspirational job is to be a CEO. So if your dream job is you want to be the CEO of a company, here are some realistic job prospects. So the first one is being a middle manager. So you basically approve PTO requests for a living. You could also be an operations director. This involves writing policies that no one will ever read. You could be a team email, which is a fancy word for saying you run meetings that could have been emails. And finally, you can be a regional manager. This involves visiting branches that never meet the targets. Okay, moving on. The next common pipe dream job aspiration is being a luxury real estate mogul. So if you want to like make big money being a real estate mogul, some realistic job aspirations involve just being a regular real estate agent. So here you're selling like suburban starter homes, but it's basically the same job. You could also be a leasing agent. This job involves touring a lot of college students through 1-bedroom flats. And finally, you can be a staging assistant. So this is someone that places the fake fruit bowl in condos for pictures. Okay, the next common pipe dream job aspiration people have is being an entrepreneur. So if your dream is to be an entrepreneur, some realistic jobs you can also get include being an operations associate. So this is someone that tracks vendor invoices that no one else noticed. You could be a pitch deck consultant. This is someone that edits other founders' slide typos while your own idea waits. You could also be a product manager. So this is someone that responds to stakeholder emails and you deal with Jira tickets all day. You could be a business development rep. So this is someone that cold emails 40 companies a day and you call it hustle. You call it networking. I'm networking. And finally, you can be a startup accelerator intern. So this is someone that does market research being Googling something. That's like 70% of the job. Okay, the next common pipe dream aspiration is being a judge. So if you dream of being a judge, some realistic adjacent jobs you can get involve being a clerk of court. This is someone that files motions and you explain to people where to stand. You could be a judicial assistant. So this is someone that manages the judge's calendar and the case files. You could be a legal researcher. This job involves finding obscure precedents for opinions. And finally, you can be a court reporter. So here you're still in court, but it's more like typing 250 words per minute while everyone else is arguing. Okay, moving on to the next common category of pipe dream job aspirations. This is what I call you're an academic overthinker with something to prove. So for this type of person, you love research, right? And like being right about things. Usually about one specific type of subject that you personally are like very invested in. You want to turn your passion and your interest into a job, usually with very little sleep. The first dream job is being a professor or an academic. So if your dream is to be a professor at an Ivy League university or like, you know, like a research institution, some common realistic job prospects adjacent to that include being an adjunct instructor. This job involves a lot of lecturing 9 sleepy undergrads at like 9 a.m. for half the pay. Another job you can get is being a teaching assistant. This job involves grading papers for someone else's class. You can also be a curriculum developer. This job involves writing lesson plans that no one follows. And finally, you can be an educational consultant. So in this job, you advise schools while missing the classroom. Okay, the next common pipe dream job in this category is being a marine biologist. So if you dream of being a marine biologist, some realistic jobs include being an environmental consultant. I've mentioned this one previously, but it's basically you check for compliance and you write reports that no one reads. You could also be an aquarium educator. So here you're still talking about sea life, you're still around sea life, but like now it's like explaining jellyfish to 2nd graders next to a splash zone. You could also be a field research assistant. This is someone that tags fish for grant projects. projects. And finally, you can be a water quality analyst. So here you're testing samples from like a wastewater plant. Okay, next common pipe dream aspiration is being a neuroscientist. If you dream of being a neuroscientist, some common jobs you can get involve being a data analyst. So your job involves a lot of Excel sheets about other people's spreadsheets. You could also be a lab tech. Here you prep brain slices for someone else's experiment. You could be a clinical research coordinator. So this is someone that tracks trial participant data. And finally, you can be a science communicator. This is someone that writes blog posts about dopamine. Next common pipe dream role, being a journalist / documentary filmmaker. So if this is your dream job, some realistic roles include being a content writer. So instead of writing exposés, you'll be writing like 5 signs, you need a new washing machine. You could also be a copy editor, so you fix typos in someone else's article. You could also be a researcher for a magazine. Researcher for a magazine being someone that fact checks celebrity ages for a Vogue article. You could be a press release writer, so this is someone that turns dry announcements into exciting company news. You could also be a video editor for a nonprofit. So here you're still telling the truth, you're still spreading the news, but now it's like 3 grant mandated stories cut to royalty-free piano music. You could be a freelance documentary researcher. This is someone that tracks archive footage licenses. And finally, you can be a social impact content producer. So again, you're still working on telling the truth, but it's more creating reels for Instagram grants. Okay, the next common pipe dream aspiration is being a paleontologist. So if you dream of being a paleontologist, some realistic jobs you can get involve being a museum tour guide. You answer questions from 2nd graders asking, is this the T-Rex 400 times a day? You could be a fossil preparator. So you glue tiny bones under microscopes for weeks. You could be a natural history interpreter. So you give kids dino facts at like summer camp. And finally, you can be a university lab assistant. So this is someone that labels bags of rocks for grad students. Okay, the next common pipe dream aspiration is being an archaeologist. So if your dream job is being an archaeologist, some common jobs you can get involve being an archaeology lab tech. So here you're still handling artifacts, but now it's like bagging, tagging, and logging like 800-year-old corn kernels for a living. You could be a museum collections assistant. So here you're still surrounded by history, but now it's like database entries and storage room shelving. You could be a heritage consultant. So here you're still talking about like ancient stuff, which you like, but now it's to government boards and like developers who don't really care. You could also be a historic preservation planner. So here you're still advocating for ruins, but now you're also applying for grants in like an open plan office. And finally, you can be an archival researcher. So this job involves basically all of the same stuff that you like. You're still chasing the past, but like now it's like dusty records, not in the desert. And the final category of pipe dream jobs is people that have morbid curiosity and you want to make it employable morbid curiosity. Basically, this category is purely for people that watch too much true crime and you're like, I want to be a detective in true crime. This is the type of person who likes to say, like, I would have been a detective because they watch like 48 hours of crime documentaries and now you think you're emotionally prepared to work crime scenes. So these are like the jobs that are like hyper appealing in theory, but like in reality it's a lot of data entry, evidence bags, and like working cases that never go viral. So the first common pipe dream role is being a detective. So if you dream of being a detective, some common realistic job prospects involve being an HR compliance investigator. This job involves tracking down someone who's been logging fake hours at work. You could also be a private investigator. This job involves following someone's ex for alimony evidence. And finally, you can be a data analyst for fraud detection. So here you're still solving crimes, except the crime is like credit card charges from someone named Greg in Indiana. Okay, the next one, general blanket one, it's like if you dream of being a forensic scientist, you want to be a private investigator, crime scene analyst, homicide detective, some realistic jobs you can get involve being a crime scene photographer's assistant, so you basically hold the measuring stick in photos. You'd also be an evidence clerk. This job involves logging bagged items in a database. You could be a toxicology lab assistant, so this is someone that checks alcohol levels for DUIs. You could be a background check researcher, so you Google people all day for a living. Probably a good job for me. You could also be a security consultant. So again, this is one of those jobs that involves writing a lot of reports that no one reads. And finally, you can be a data compliance analyst. This is someone that flags suspicious accounts in spreadsheets for a living. That wraps up all of the realistic jobs for common pipe dream job aspirations. I hope this is helpful to you. Thank you for watching the video. If you like this, you should check out my other videos. I literally do job video, crush video, relationship dating app, you know, like if you have a life problem, I have a video for it, so you should watch any of those. By the way, if you want to get a hard copy or like a PDF file of the graphic that I'm using in this video, then you can check out my coffee shop. The shop also includes all of the other like graphics, flowcharts for like the other videos that I've done, so if you're interested in any of that, link is up there, down there, you know how it works.